Hey guys, morning. So, for those of you who haven't seen this, there's a clip going around social media, mostly Twitter and Instagram. Um, a clip from this podcast called Fresh and Fit with a gentleman named Myron Gaines. Myron Gaines is not his real name. He's actually a Sudanese Muslim guy. I think his last name is Fudl, Fudl. So he needs to buy a vowel, among other things. Right? So in the clip, he often, I guess you could say that his show is part of what's called the Red Pill world, Red Pill community. These guys sitting around talking about like dating and women's issues or it not women's issues but like issues with women, issues that they have with how women are today, etc., etc. Right? That whole community, it makes me think of the whole I don't know if you guys remember No Ma'am, the group that Al Bundy created with his friends. Not that I'm against stuff like that, but whatever. It's just like it's almost like a lampoonish take on that. Right? So most of the time these guys sit around talking about, and usually he has ladies, at his table, and he just has them to give their opinion, right? For them to give their opinion. And then so he can kind of clap back at them or whatever, him and his friend. So usually the topic is dating and marriage and how guys, whatever, how men are at a disadvantage, the family court system, etc., etc., right? Just the things that I guess are prevalent today. This clip that's going around, they got on the topic of like Jews, right? And one of the ladies, she just was like, "Oh, but clearly the Jews did something in Germany to make to make Hitler do what he did." I'm just paraphrasing, Nobody wants to take accountability for that, and you could see now what they're doing with, and he basically like didn't finish the job, or the way he did it was so gruesome that people didn't, go along with it eventually. And and you see that they're doing the same thing in America, in the Western world, and blah blah blah. And then in the end, they're like, how do we get rid of them? Well, we could just the G word, right? Folks, I gotta tell you, and everybody's appalled by this, right? Folks, I can tell you that I personally am not appalled by this. I'm not shocked by this. I'm not asking. Sorry, there's a lot of allergies. I'm not asking anybody to like, like I saw in the comment section, the talk, saying this on the internet should be made illegal. Folks, who has laws against words like this? Actually, Germany has laws against this, and now England are gonna have laws against this, or do have laws against this kind of thing, right? Folks, I don't think there should be laws against this, against talking like this. I think there should be laws for what, right? So that Jews can, do what needs to be done if they're threatened, right? So, but I'm not appalled by this, guys. I'm not appalled. Why? First of all, I saw this coming. This is honestly, for me, the crescendo of what was coming for a very, very long time. Both from the left and from the right. I saw this coming. Because, as my friend Frank said yesterday, her parents, like that girl that said this, in the clip, we don't even, at this point, we don't even call her a person. We call her an it, right? And it was defecated out by her parents. Just like it's like her, others, guys and girls. Doesn't matter the race, by the way. It happens to be that the girl who said this was African American. It doesn't matter the race. You hear it from white people, you hear it from all kinds of people, folks, right? The guy who has the show happens to be that he's a Sudanese Muslim. So he inherently, I don't know which part of Sudan he's from, but he inherently hates Jews. He inherently hates Jews, right? From a, I don't know if you want to call it from Islamist perspective, but from a perspective of his, let's say, his tribe. He's a tribalist, right? He was told all kinds of things about Jews in the home, in his community, and that's what he believes. And then he uses how should I put this? He amplifies tropes to buttress his already inherent belief about Jews, right? Like he looks at like the bad things, just like any other community, folks, right? Has people who do not such savory things. So he looks at like one or two guys, and then he says, okay, every single Jew, this is all Jews, right? Which, okay, he's free to do that, right? It's funny, guys. A friend of mine sent me a clip of two, Chabad guys, and they're like, here's a newsflash for you. 0.2% of the world's population is not responsible for why your life sucks, right? 0.2. Jews represent 0.2, not 2, 0.2% of the world's population is not responsible for why your life sucks. Folks, there are 15 million Jews on planet Earth. There's 8 billion people. Let's do some quick math. 1% would be 10% would be 800 million. 1% would be 80 million. 0.1% would be 1 second. Let's do this again. 8 billion people. 10% would be 800 million. Yeah. 1% would be 80 million, and 0.1% would be 8 million. So basically you just, I had it right the first time. This is an advanced math guy, calculus. So you just double that number, double 8 million, and you get around, not even 0.2%, folks. The people who identify, we have a lot of people who identify as Jews. That's another thing. That's a separate topic, separate video I want to make, by the way. Why people want to be Jewish so bad, but they don't want to do anything like mitzvot and Torah, right? But they want to be Jewish. How dare you tell a person who's a quarter Jewish that he's not Jewish? Different conversation. So, folks, this is the crescendo of everything we've been hearing. We've been hearing, and it seems like anti-Semites have dug up, every single solitary trope that ever existed about Jews throughout the last 2,000 years, and now it's all being, like aggregated. It's almost like we're folks. It's almost like we're going through in a museum. You can go to a museum and you could see like a historical timeline. Kind of like a This Is Your Life thing, but like for a group of people, for like a race of people or for a nation. And it shows that, well, first they were accused of this, and then they were accused of that, and then it's always different things, right? Capitalist, communist, killed J.C. Penney, I don't know, make matzah out of blood, kids' blood, something like all kinds of folks, all kinds of crazy stuff. Wouldn't convert, to Catholicism. I don't know. There's another thing like, with Chabad, one of the Chabad Rebbes, that, he was basically jailed by the Russians. Why? Because he was sending money to his students in Israel. But who was running Israel at the time? The Ottomans. So they were like, oh, you're supporting the Ottomans, even though he wasn't, right? That's just like a political thing. Folks, I mean, like, there was all kinds of stuff. And you know what's funny? All these tropes, right? And I said before, yes, mister, I'll let you in. As I said before, all the tropes, this is what, some of these idiots don't understand. They're railing about the state of Israel and genocide and this and that. That there were tropes for 1,800 years. Just let my friend in here. Before we ever got a state, before we even had an army, before we were, quote unquote, genociding the Palestinians, right? There was all these horrible things supposedly that we were doing to the world. Folks, we didn't have any political power. We didn't have any lobbies. We didn't have any. And if we did have political power, we were like advisors to some king because he saw that we, like we were, we're intelligent. Like we can do the job, right? Folks, Jews, when they lived throughout the ages in different diaspora countries, the only way we had power is if we were allowed to have power. Like if one or two guys, we didn't carve anything out. If we did carve anything out, it was in like our own neighborhoods, our own ghettos, and that was basically, folks, it seems like we were, people think we were like, running stuff and this. Again, it's some person brought us in, some person hired us, right? That's how it would be, right? Like, it's always a thing we say, beware when like a Jewish guy becomes like, the president of a country. You see what goes on, you see what could happen, right? Look at Ukraine. This Zelensky idiot, right? I'm getting off topic. So folks, it's almost like they just collected all the tropes that ever existed, right? And started spewing them out again, recycling them. From like, medieval, England, France, from Spain. You have Candace Owens with all this stuff, that the Jewish people are this and that, and they're what is it called? Now the Christians are chosen, this kind of thing. And now we have the state of Israel, so now it's funny because with the state of Israel, for people who didn't want to be identified as anti-Semites, so they would just hide behind the veil of anti-Israelism or anti-Zionism or criticize. I'm merely criticizing the Israel. Why am I not allowed to criticize Israel? You can criticize Israel all you want. You just have to come in good faith. It has to be legitimate criticism, not something based on absolute bullshit or manipulation or a lie, flat out lie, or maybe or half truth at best. You can criticize all you want, just don't make things up like you do. So now you added the Israel thing, right? Now that we have the state of Israel, even though Jews, came back to Israel en masse way before the state was founded, we were building up the country for 80 years. But we know that, right? And it's like this whole, again, amalgam of these tropes, and they're just spewing them out. It's like religion, cultural. Like they spew out tropes about like Orthodox Jews, how we practice certain things, right? Which we've been doing for like thousands of years, hundreds of years. And then it's just cultural, right? So then they attack just culturally Jews, right? Less to do with the actual religious aspect. But then they try to throw in, it's just funny to me, guys, sometimes I see, they'll accuse some completely secular guy, who's like a CEO of something, right? Or some agent or, a lawyer, like one of these guys. They will accuse a guy, and let's say he does something wrong, and then they'll say, yeah, you know why he did that, right? Their Talmud says to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy wouldn't know Talmud, the guy they're accusing of this thing, wouldn't know Talmud if it hit him on the head. You couldn't drag him into a base midrash. You couldn't, you can't even get him to put on tefillin, right? Like, imagine, guys, it's funny. Like, I remember I was listening to a lecture, Rabbi Mordechai Becher. I think it was Rabbi Mordechai Becher, I believe. Yeah. He said, at some point I tried to get, Larry David's agent. I spoke to his agent or his lawyer or whoever, somebody close to him, and I said, I'm trying to get Larry David to put on tefillin, or to come for a class or something like that. And he just refused. First he said no, then he said, I don't know, it was like the hardest thing to get this guy to come and put on tefillin. He doesn't want to just put on tefillin. I'm not asking him to come to a Shabbat meal. I'm not asking him to come learn, whatever, right? Gemara with me. I'm not asking him to do anything. I'm just asking him to put on tefillin and just have a little conversation for like an hour about, his questions about philosophy. Like, I'm not, that's it. And he doesn't want to. And folks, so these are the guys, like Larry David types, are the ones that get accused of they did something wrong because why did they do this wrong thing? Why did this guy, why did Madoff do? So their Talmud says that, that this is how, they're supposed to deal with non-Jews. Blah, blah, blah. Folks, it's just the funniest thing because they attribute the wrong causation or the wrong, source to the wrong person. They say you put in the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. You know what I mean? It's just bizarre. I mean, you could say, Tzvi, nobody ever said, Jew haters are smart. I know that. They're very stupid. It's just the funniest thing to me. So they do the cultural thing, they do the religious thing. Sometimes they combine it when it's not shaykh, it's not relevant, but they try to make it relevant to itself, to each other, I don't know. I don't even have the words to describe what they're doing. I see what they're doing. I don't have the lashon, I don't have the nomenclature to they're grafting things that they should not be grafted onto each other. There we go. And now we have the Israel thing, guys, right? Now we have, again, as I said before in other videos, you have the Jewish people coming back to the land, and everybody understands that that's even if they never read the Bible themselves, everybody understands that that's prophecy. Everybody understands that that's what's called kibbutz galuyot, the ingathering of the exiles, is part of prophecy, part of the Messianic age, part of, maybe it's a sign Mashiach is coming back. And honestly, guys, for at least back then, for the Christian world, it was a thing where wait a minute, we thought that the Jewish people lost their status as, I'm going to use the word, their status as the responsible people. I don't like the word Ama Nivchar in Hebrew. It's an incomplete sentence almost. It's almost like Hashem gave us an incomplete sentence. It's not the chosen people, chosen. Folks, imagine you're at work and your boss chooses you, but he doesn't choose you because he wants to give you more money necessarily or more honor. He chooses you to do the work that nobody else will do, right? And actually pay you the same or maybe even less than everybody else. Or maybe he will pay you more, but that's only because you're doing the work, right? A little bit more, not much more. So if you're doing all the work and something goes wrong, or if you're the person, who's in charge of a certain department, something goes wrong, who's going to get blamed? You're going to get blamed, right? So folks, the Christian world got it into their heads that Ama Nifar, the chosen people, means chosen better and given everything. No, chosen people means we're responsible. Folks, you ever come up to most non-Jews, even people who love Israel and love Jews, and they ask you okay, so what does Shabbat entail? What does this entail? What does kosher entail? And you tell them, just basic, right? You're not talking about chumras, right? You're not talking about stringencies. You tell them, here's what you have to do to keep Shabbat. Here's what you have to do to keep kosher. Here's what you have to do on this holiday. Here's what you can't do or you can't do. Folks, most non-Jews I've encountered, good people, like love Israel, love the Jews. You tell them this, they're like, I think I'm going to stick to my, I'm gonna stick to what I'm doing. I'm gonna stick to being, whatever. Just being a good person. I'm like, yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy being cheesy, right? So that's, folks, that's obviously what the responsible people have been designated to do. To be responsible in that way, right? Again, I don't like the word chosen. In English, it's just, again, it's like this whole supremacy thing. I don't like it. And it's wrong. It's incorrect. Like, it's literally that's not what it means. So the Christian world, finally, the majority of the Christian world, after seeing what's going on for the past, 80 years or 70 years in the development of the state of Israel, understands, okay, maybe the Jewish people are back. Maybe we're looking at prophecy. Maybe we're looking at, maybe this is it, And then there's these few people under the category of what do they call themselves? Christ is King, who are still in that headspace of, no, it can't be. Why? Because, look, 80% of them don't even keep Shabbat and kosher. Look, they're doing genocide on the Arabs. Even though these are the same people, these Christ is King people, who also don't like the fact that, their country's being Islamified. But again, we spoke about the horseshoe, right, guys? Like, none of it makes sense. So, folks, we have this, what I call combination, of people hating the religious aspect of Judaism, people hating the Jewish people themselves, cultural, whatever it is, and now we have the anti-Israelism aspect. And now they've integrated all of that stuff, and they're just running, folks, it's almost like they're running through the timeline of tropes. And they're showing us, it's almost like Hashem designated them to show us, here's everything you've gone throughout history. Here's just kind of a replay. Here's kind of a review. And I think, guys, honestly, I think it's to wake us up. For sure, October 7th woke a lot of people up, but I think all this stuff, we should not be pushing back and saying, or pushing back in the sense of screaming to our congressmen, again, and senators and all the presidents, please make this illegal. Yeah, if you want to say, take away, money from Qatar, or stop, allowing Qatar money to Ivy League campuses, that's one thing, to brainwash kids. But if you're talking about making speech like this illegal, I think that's bad. I think if anything, it should be made legal. And I want Jews, especially Jews who are not active as Jews, who are uninitiated, or who are what do they call it? Who are just get out of the sun, guys. Who are unaffiliated. There we go. Who are not active, who are not affiliated. I want those people to wake up to who they are. I want those people to start exploring what is, if one of these anti-Semites comes and starts talking about the Talmud and saying lies from the Talmud, or rather, misattributing the Talmud or misquoting the Talmud, or, taking it out of context, what I want is a secular Jew, instead of just, waving that off. I want the secular Jew to actually look into the Talmud, to actually see what does it say in the Talmud, because I want that Jew to look in the Talmud. I want that Jew to learn his own book. You understand? And then maybe he'll start keeping Shabbat, and maybe he'll start keeping kosher. Maybe he'll start learning. He'll start steiking. I'm talking to myself. I don't learn enough. I don't sit enough in front of a Gemara. I have these books in my house. I don't sit enough in front of them. I finished one of the tractates. Which one was it? Kiddushin, a few years ago. Have I picked up another one? No, I have not. Right? A Jewish man is supposed to be learning every day. I learn here and there every day, every other day, or certain things over the course of the day, but I don't have a set learning thing. Again, different conversation. Folks, I want these people to be allowed to say certain things so that we wake up to certain things about ourselves and then start looking into those things, and then what we will find are the correct things about ourselves and come back to who we are. That's what Hashem sent the anti-Semite into the world to do, folks. Unfortunately, what turned out from the Holocaust is two things. And that's why Hitler, I would say, he was probably the most successful in many ways, where he, first of all, he killed a lot of Torah. He destroyed Torah. There was a lot of Torah sages, scholars that were killed. And the Torah world had to rebuild itself after that, both in America and in Israel and everywhere else, in Europe. It was pretty much gone, right? Also what he did, folks, is he basically after the Holocaust, a lot of Jews started basing their identity as Jews on what? Just that one event, right? Remembering that event. They did the survey, the Pew Research Survey in 2013. What's the thing that you most identify with being Jewish? Remembering the Holocaust. That was the number one thing. Remembering a giant death event, of like a third of our people. That's the thing that I identify, And then you have this whole thing, children of Holocaust survivors, their trauma, this and that. Folks, this goes on for generations, right? But it's funny. It's not funny, but it's interesting that you have these, people on social media who are literally pooling together every trope that ever existed about us. And they're, digging them up again, they're dredging them up again. And folks, it's almost like a lot of us are not paying attention. We just wanna, make them go away. They're not gonna go away. They're here. These people are here. These people are here. These ideas, as bullshit as they are here, right? Or half-truths or complete lies, fabrications. They're going to be here, right? So there's one of two ways to deal with it, right? Or there's basically two ways to deal with it. One is to look into it and find out about who you are. Find out about the Torah. Find out about Israel, the history of Israel, right? As a modern state, or even before the state was founded. Find out about all these things that they're accusing us of, culturally, religiously. When I say find out, I mean look into the actual stuff, and then you'll find that it's like there's things there. Not bad things, good things. There's mitzvot, there's Torah, there's a whole heritage, there's a whole history, right? Folks, don't allow the people who hate us to co-opt Jewish history and Jewish religion, because their version of it is crap. It's junk science, junk history, right? Literally, that's what it is. Folks, the second way to deal with it is, again, it almost seems to me, let's say in America or pretty much anywhere in the world, the Jews like to be sitting ducks. So they're like, so what do they want? They want, when an anti-Semite comes out and says certain things, they want their government to shut the guy's mouth, right? And then they want their government to defend him from the guy, in case the guy comes after them. Folks, stupid. That's very, very stupid. We shouldn't shut their mouth. And if they come after us, we should have that, right? We got to do what we got to do. He has to do what he has to do, like my friend Frank said, and we have to do what we have to do, my friends. We're not going to the cattle cars again. We're not going to the cattle cars. We're not going to the, the underground torture chambers, like in Spain. We're not going to the be burned at the stake, like in all these places in Europe. It's not going to happen, folks. It's not going to happen. And we're not going to anymore be, chased down at a music festival. As much as we thought that could never happen, but B'ezrat Hashem, it won't happen again. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing, what I think happened that day, but whatever, right? My friends, we can't. These people are coming to tell us something. These people are coming to wake us up to who we are. Not the bullshit that they spew, but they're coming to remind us just that we're Jews. And that, we should look into our own, what Jews should be doing, right? Because folks, I gotta tell you, we were religious until the mid-18th, until the Enlightenment era, we were religious. Everybody was a religious Jew, right? Shabbat, kosher, all the rest of it. And they still hated us. The anti-Semites still hated us, right? Because we didn't accept their, we killed JCPenney, and we didn't accept JCPenney, and then after that, it's funny, they put us in these jobs where they forced us into the finance jobs. They forced us into it. We couldn't own land. They forced us into stuff like money lending, and then they complained that we, usury. Folks, but I just want to say real quick, they accused Jews of inventing usury, like charging interest for lending, right? Folks, you know that in Italy, people used to go to Jews to get a loan. And let's say, I'm just giving an example. Let's say why did they go to a Jew? Because if you went to a non-Jewish lender, the interest rate, let's say, would be 100%. From a Jewish lender, it would be 50. If it was 50% rate from a non-Jewish one, the Jewish one would give you 25%. Folks, we undercut all the other lenders. That's why everybody went to us, and we were forced into that business. And then we learned, and then because we were forced into that business, we were in it for such a long time. We learned how to do it well, and of course, everybody, all these Jew haters decided that that we are like the guys that invented the freaking game. No, we just rewrote the game, but we didn't invent it. It's like the rap lyric, I didn't invent the game, I rewrote the game, Because they forced us, literally, it sounds funny, they forced us into it. They literally forced us into it because we could not own land. The only thing we were allowed to do is work in finance. That's why, and then that's why you have that play, The Merchant of Venice, from Shakespeare, where Al Pacino played in the movie. Folks, it's just like, yeah. It's like, They give us, they put us in these positions, and then they invent tropes out of it, folks. They were accusing us of stuff back then. Again, before the state of Israel, before any of this stuff. It's nothing new. It's nothing new, folks. So, honestly, I'm not upset. I'm not surprised. If anything, I think I'm not going to say it's good. I'm going to say it's productive that we're seeing this. It's productive for us. It's, it's productive. It's like laying down on a bed of nails, not nails, a bed of those acupuncture needles or whatever, right? It hurts, but it's productive, right? It's painful to watch. It's painful to hear, but it's productive if you get something out of it. You know? Folks, that's what we should be thinking about. Because otherwise it's just like, it makes us look, when you do that kind of stuff, when you come to people and say, oh, shut up, shut his mouth up. Or, make this illegal. You can't make this legal. Never again. It just makes you look guilty of what they're accusing you of, which you're not. You're not guilty of it. But it makes you look guilty of it. It's bad. It's even worse. Folks, I want them, You ever guys see that t-shirt, keep talking, I'm diagnosing you? I want them to keep talking. I want Kanye to keep talking. I want Candace Owens to keep talking. I want all these people to keep talking. Because you know what? If you guys remember the story of Bilam from 2 weeks ago, 2 parshas ago, okay? Anybody who wants to curse us is giving us a bracha. That person, these people are merely giving us a bracha. They're just empowering us, okay? And maybe, just maybe, slowly, very slowly, they're making us wake up to our true selves and come back to the Torah, to Hashem, maybe to Israel, and all that kind of stuff. That's it, guys. So, a Sudanese Muslim clown and his band of 60 IQ combined amoebas, we should not feel threatened by people like this, guys. It was horrible to hear, but, again, if they do what they do, we're going to have to do what we're going to have to do. So, it is what it is. But I think the message is here, guys. We have to wake up to who we are, and we have to dafka realize that, yes, the world is looking to us, and yeah, we are the responsible people. Again, I don't like the word chosen. We are the responsible people, the responsible party, and let's get responsible. That's it. All right, guys. Shabbat Shalom and Chodesh Tov. Menachem Av. And be careful out there.